Well, welcome everyone. Most of you know why Exchange, but if you're new, this is such a fun event, talking across arts, and sometimes we have scientists and also technology in the mix. But today we're really excited to feature Katie Porter and Robert Moses in conversation. And we invite you all to really engage with these artists and their work and to see the intersection of the arts in this talk. So, just for sort of front of house reminders, this is a recorded event. So, if that makes you feel uncomfortable, please feel free to turn off your video. We will publish this recording on our Kinetech Arts Y Exchange page. So you will be able to reference that 2 days after the event or so. We'll also follow up with links and anything that you saw today that the artist shared with you. We'll also be able to refer to that later. I'm Alex. I'll be the chat moderator today. So if you have questions or thoughts, feel free to direct message me or just message the whole group. As we walk through these presentations, I encourage you to write your questions as they come up in the chat. That way, when we get to the very end of the presentations we see today, we'll be able to go in order, and I'll call on you and say, hey, can you ask your question? And we'll have a nice Q&A at the very end. We'll start in speaker view today, and then we'll move into gallery view at the end with our Q&As. If you were here last Y Exchange, we're gonna do both presentations at the front, and then we'll have the nice long Q&A at the very end. So this is really to encourage everyone here to see both works side by side and to really engage both artists in your questions, or even if you just have a question for one of the artists, that is totally fine. Just know that Y Exchange is all about the kind of crossover and dialogue we can spur that way. This is a free and public event, so welcome. And we always do this every last Wednesday of the month. Stay tuned in our Kinetech Arts social media channels, on our Kinetech Arts webpage. I'll put all that information at the very end. It's also co-presented by ODC, Theater, and the Jurassic Residence Artist Program, and Kinetech Arts, of course. So I want to pass it on to Diane a little bit to tell a little bit about the history of this event and the people that bring it together. So, Diane.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Nice to see your faces. I've been looking at who is here. There's some people hiding behind the camera, which is totally fine, but it's nice. I see you. I see your names there. So thanks for being here tonight. And thank you, Robert and Katie, for being here, for coming and talking about your work and your life. We are all very excited to learn more about your work. We started Y Exchange in 2014. That was like the second year of Kinetech Arts. We founded Kinetech Arts in 2013. And in 2014, we created Y Exchange that used to be called the Featured Artist Presentation. And we thought it was a very long name. And we wanted to have a more like a YX, like a Y letter and an X. So intersecting art, science, and technology. And we have been having amazing artists talking about all kinds of subjects in this event. And it's always very engaging, and the audience always very curious, asking lots of questions. And I would like to acknowledge ODC and Jurassic Resident Artist Program for doing this with us since 2016. So we're very, very happy to have them partnering with us. I think that's all I wanted to say. So I'll pass it back to Alex to introduce Katie.
Thank you, Di. So today we're going to have Katie go first, and then we'll have Robert right after. So I'm really excited to start you off with Katie Porter. If you haven't read the bio, I'm going to read it now so you get a sense of who she is, but she'll go into detail. Katie Porter is a clarinetist and curator specializing in experimental music. She founded the venue Listen Space in Brooklyn and curates the Listen Space commissions and residency in a remote cabin in Utah. She also co-directs the annual VU Symposium for Experimental, Improvised, and Electronic Music and is working on a giant multi-year project of experimental works for solo clarinet at Nancy Holt's Sun Tunnels, a land artwork in a desert in northern Utah. Beautiful place. Her duo, Red Desert Ensemble, with composer percussionist Devin Maxwell, called a finely poised musical partnership, The Wire, not superficial ambient music by Tempo, and a particularly fascinating soundscape by Neo Noten, can be heard on Phil Nublock's sixth label in New York. And there's a bunch of other references there. And I'm going to just say, I'm going to put your link on to your website in the chat and take it away, Katie.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to read. I wrote an article this year in this amazing journal on new music and experimental music called Sound American. And this one's called The Life Issue. And it's a lot of articles about musicians talking about their humanity also. And so I wanted to read from this and then play some examples of works that I've done in the last couple years. I will try to link to those in the chat also if you want to listen to the full recordings. Okay. It's not a loop, it's a spiral. Fragments of letters I wrote this year. I like your slow music idea very much. It's close to my heart for many reasons. I think for me, I want to stop time. Share the experience of time stopping, and that is really now at the core of what I want to do and play, especially out in the desert. Do you ever feel like you've run out of music? This year, for the first time, it feels like that. Like we've played all the music we want to play, and we've made recordings of pieces that we've played forever and love. And now what? What is next? It seems I should make some things for myself. I put a few projects in motion these last couple weeks, and now they're all happening at once. My clarinets are out, and it's felt good. A long time ago now, I realized my role in music was making things happen. So when we moved from Brooklyn to the mountains, a decade ago now, and there were no more people, no important concerts, no audience, we truly only had each other to collaborate with. It felt strange and empty, but then it became about Devin's work and my work and our work together. And then I felt like, wait, we can share this. We can make music here. We can bring people out. So I started some projects, and they continue in several ways. Commissions, recordings, the symposium, bringing people to Utah. Let's be together. Let's make music. I need this. Do you need this? Even though we are all apart, where are we collectively headed? And maybe what I need is exactly what others need too, being together. I guess I'm responsible for hundreds of concerts at Listen Space, tons of new works at our cabin, and for our duo Red Desert. I love all of that music, but what do I remember? Late nights talking to Steph under the stars while Dev and Andrew recorded Travis's crazy backwards drum set parts in the garage. Jonathan and Kristen bringing their new baby, Eric summoning a moose, Andre sharing chocolate while giving Maya an impromptu composition lesson at the kitchen table. Times. Can I recreate that in this strange time too? We are all isolated. This week, Lucio and I worked on our bass clarinet duet, a floating game of tennis full of soft multiphonics and low, low blocks of sound. He lives in Berlin, which is truly a world away from here. He's locked down. We are now good friends, talking about our kids and politics, but mostly it's been surreal to find the person that wants to play the bass clarinet just like I do. Wherever we are at with it, we seem to just want to sit and bask in it. When the world opens up, this duo might be the thing that brings me over there. Lucio wants to play it everywhere. Maybe we'll have 8 hours of duets, he says. Maybe. Today he called my high repeating tones an obligato, and I laughed and laughed. How do you create space for music now? How do you connect with people? How do I make art important when everything has been reprioritized? When we may or may not be okay? My friend Theodora sent me a piece yesterday for Casio synthesizer and clarinet. It's very similar to whatever Dev is thinking about, super beating sine waves, intense but still. It's funny how sometimes music collides like that. It happens often, people from totally different places sort of discovering the same thing at the same time, or being in the same place with music, letting it sit, a collective breathing out. Do you listen to music? I know, it's a loaded question. Tomorrow, I have a live stream within a live stream while on Zoom. For real. I think I would rather do anything else, but I will play a few notes within a matrix-type framework and we'll let the universe decide if they matter or not. On Fridays, I meet with Christine from her home in LA, where it's always cats and the sounds of ice cream trucks and wind chimes. A bass flute and bass clarinet duet. I feel like I'm right there with her and I can feel the heat. What we've been making is so slow moving. A few notes every week at the pace of our breaths and intervals we love. Pure sounds, a sort of nod to all of these limitations of time and space. What can we do in this time? How can we make something together? But also, What's new? Are you okay? Today, we recorded a set of music in our living room. 2 takes. That's all the quiet time we get. I think it was nice. We let the speakers play one of Dev's electronic pieces and walked away and left an empty room just blasting this music. It's pretty striking. Who knows? It's weird to put this stuff on the internet. It's just something else entirely. But still, I think the music speaks for itself. I feel very much the same way you do about making recordings. We haven't talked about that, but I've nodded my head the few times you've written your thoughts. I absolutely don't know what to make of setting in concrete this thing that we did that, at its very best, is ephemeral, an idea that floated by. Did you catch it? We are taking something that was meant to be experienced and then relegated to our beautiful, faulty memory, collective memory, and letting it live on forever and have this ridiculous, perpetual digital lifetime. Not just a lifetime, but a digital infinity. It's a lot. I don't know what to make of it. No, I don't listen to recordings either. And so, if we're not listening, who are they for? Lucio and I are working this way, Christina and I are working this way, but now we know for certain that all we want to do is sit together in a room and play. I tried something new last night. I've been learning and improvising some things on bass clarinet with electronics. I just set it all up in the living room and have been going back to it in between moments of the days. Anyway, the new thing I tried was in performance. I played a whole solo set at the first art opening at the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art for people. I'm not sure if I conjured it or what, but they asked me to play, and look, I have PA speakers and 2 mic'd bass clarinets in my living room right now, and I'm thinking deeply about openness to sound and my relationship with my instrument, and I'm ready. I'm really in some wonderful place where I give 0 fucks, and I think I played high harmonics on the bass clarinet for a full 15 minutes. In a collaboration between Devin and I, his electronics and me improvising. I have never done that before. I feel free. It felt great. People were listening. Listening in a way I don't always feel, listening without judgment, enjoying being, a huge energy, happiness to be making things, part of things. There was a feeling of hope. I think this is something I was trying to say to you, but I felt a little misunderstood. What I was trying to say was not that I enjoy destruction, especially not in music, but that what we are making has a kind of fragility because it is so dependent on people, on interpretation, on openness, on an understanding. Not sure. Maybe a fragility of being because people make the work happen. I guess I'm just incredibly appreciative of people that make things happen. I think that's what this time has me realizing, how much I miss making things, how much synergy I have with people making things, doing and being. Thank you.
Thank you. If everyone can clap, or you can unmute yourself for a moment. Thank you. Yes, sound. This was amazing. I was just grinning the whole time. So many possibilities. Oh, there's time. That was wonderful, Katie. So if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But we'll come back and definitely have a lot of questions for you after we go with our next presenter. And so I'm going to pass it on to Di to introduce Robert.
Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I have lots of stories to tell, but I won't tell. I won't tell. No, I will read your bio.
I don't know what you're going to tell. Make up whatever you want. Go for it.
I'm
What are we
kidding.
doing?
I'm kidding.
No, I
I'm
know.
kidding.
What are we doing?
Robert Moses, major force here in the Bay Area, sought after choreographer, mentor to many dancers in the Bay Area, including myself for a little bit, right, Robert? He gave me a little bit of a hope that I could do things myself. And I want to say that I really appreciate that from you, Robert.
No,
Thank you
thank you.
so much. I never told you that, but I'm telling you right now.
That's very nice. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. When you invite me to choreograph for a company, it really changed something for me. And it really made me believe that, oh, I think I can do this thing.
Yeah,
So
well,
thank you so much.
you
I
were
really
already doing
appreciate
it. That's why I asked you.
it.
You're
Oh,
already there.
what's funny?
What?
I asked you, I said, Robert, how long should this piece be? And you said, doesn't matter. It could be, if you make a brilliant 5-minute piece, then it could be 5 minutes.
Yeah. 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 No,
I
that's
said, okay.
yeah, no, that's it
Anyway,
exactly. Yeah. I think the process is when you're in the middle of whatever it is you're doing. I think that is very important that you don't get bogged down in some preconceived idea of what it is you should be doing to get to the place that you may not know. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to sort of figure out what the limitations of that thing are at first? But later on, you can figure those things out. I just I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, my process. This is a new format for me. So I was thinking I'm going to do just a few things, talk a little bit about my process and the way that I think I'm working now. And my practice currently sort of regularly includes writing or jotting things down, uh, making sound, and making movement, and then figuring out what of those things might belong together, what of those things do not belong together, and figuring out how it is that I might move something forward in whatever arena I might want to sort of push the thing forward. Now, this all sounds a little amorphous, I'm sure, but hopefully it'll get a little clearer for you. Just talk a little bit about my writing practice. I put down anything that comes to mind, and then I kind of drop into that. It might be a word or a phrase or something, and it'll stay on the page, and I'll just dig down into that phrase, the images that come up from that, memories or whatever, and sort of drop into that, uh, And what I find happens when I do that is that I wind up in a place where I'm trying to render a state of mind rather than necessarily write something that's near narrative or close to narrative or something that's poetic. There is meaning there, but the meaning isn't necessarily attached to by a ball and chain to our conception of what it is you're trying to get from it, what you might understand. Yeah. So, uh, but on the other end of that, I am one of those artists that sort of insists that part of my job is to make sure that you understand. So, one of the things that I don't really care for is surrendering my responsibility to viewers or the audience. So, if I tell you it's something, then I'm going to fight really hard to get there. But again, when I start, I don't necessarily know what that thing is. Sometimes you know what you're after, but you don't know the end goal sort of in getting there. And so then, uh, if I have sound that I've created, I may try to find something that runs sort of in the same emotional tenor, or that might be able to put us into sort of the same psychological framework as the thing that I'm listening to, or I'll ask someone to do a piece of music that way. And the movement for me, I won't say it's any easier than any of the rest of what I'm doing, but I've been doing it in a way that has been uh, uh, critically assessed by others, and so my response to the art making process when I'm making movement is a little more attuned to what people might respond to in particular ways. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to show maybe three selections. They'll be short selections. Uh, uh, and then if you guys have questions between or after, that's fine with me. I'm not one to stand on ceremony. But I do like the way Katie did her thing, and thank you for sharing that, Katie. It was really wonderful of you to share like that. I really, really do appreciate it when someone puts the work out there like that. It's wonderful to see that. So it inspired me to read a little of something, and maybe this will give you a little idea, a little more context for the first thing that I'm going to show you. This is just a little piece of something that I wrote, that we then obviously, like most of us in COVID, spent a fair amount of time on in front of a camera learning some different skills, some new skills. And so it's a good opportunity to sort of start pushing together some of the things that I do and am interested in doing. So I'm going to read just a little bit of that, a portion that comes later. I'm going to maybe just show 2 or 3 minutes of a section of something that illustrates what it's talking about in terms of state of mind, and then come back and talk a little more and show you something else. So this little excerpt goes, they say you have a chip on your shoulder and treat it as if it were a cache of ill temper stored by an undisciplined, ungrateful underachiever, unwilling to trade up. We think to ourselves, trust your experience, but the idea of being ill tempered seeps in, begins to feel like our lives. Suck it out, it is poison. We think fuel, you say. Paranoia drives away reason. Yeah, your reason. Because reason is, of course, what you say it is. Admonishing figments have more power in your life than that spit in your face or your disappointment in yourself that you have at the comment you let slide. So you find yourself in the position of disciplining figments. You struggle against them, the figments, in iconically inspiring ways, with a body fueled by nurturing the soil of propertied histories. And you can call that coercion grown on this historical ground a rot, a terror. Call it slavery, racism, privilege. Call it a softer, gentler form of mindfuck commerce, an aberration, a kind of self destruction, a kind of recreation, when what falls from your body, from your narrowing shoulders, once we come to see the figment for what it is, the silt of the chips we have burned. So that is an excerpt from this longer piece, and I'm going to set it up before I make sure that I put the right thing up before I start to share the screen. I'm vamping right now to make sure that I've got the right thing here. All right, and I'm going to share my screen. Here we go, share the screen, and then I'm going to blow this up a little bit here. How do we do this? One moment, please, and there we go. And we'll just do about 3 or 4 minutes of this.
There is dirt, dross, and mire and sand, and there are trick bags and trapdoors and painted corners, and none of those are here escaped. And there are ghosts, and those ghosts pull you into or drop you through or box you in, and they cannot be escaped. And there are realizations waiting for you, and having realized again that it's been done again, there comes again an understanding of in what new way another of your lives has been taken, with what new eccentric prison, or there is an understanding of how that new death has been clarified, of how respect and dignity is in some inexcusable way placed outside the appropriate grammar of this place. Think about it how you will, but disciplining the figment seen haunting the streets from an armchair of experience, real or imagined, merely requires waiting out another spasm of riot born. Even then, the figments press, or rather, they pour into you. They get caught in you, damming up as if they were a cache of ill temper stored by undisciplined, ungrateful, unwilling underachievers. So I was looking for a guiding metaphor and thought I need more than one. I need few words able to travel the significances of the particular that result in the acknowledgement of acquisition. I think warm ghosts. I need guided clarity. Ghosts that walk this world fill bodies that have been sucked dry. There's nothing metaphoric about the repatriation of the dead into the body or into the what's to come. They go about the work of memory. They cannot be devoured with a sip. Suck it. There will always be more life. Inclined toward the old knowledge, new spirits are brought back. I was drained or not fast enough or dismissive or so outraged or it was the wrong place and time. I let it pass. That starts when tired in public, when I break rule number whatever through whichever in the black man's digest of don't up that with which you fuck. The first rule of which is never get tired in public. Rule number 2 is be an example, not the next martyr. I up-fucked in the worst way. I got tired, lost track of myself in why when under fire a dodge is better than a weave, to what end I swung and slung shit, and why I might go down for it. All that got twisted up and what I lost with loose remembrance. Reopened hydrants, chalk on the street, brown legs and shredded shorts, stoop sitting. People watching as meditation. When I think about what I have lost in that context, I up-fucked. And I think how would you, the unfounded, be qualified to determine the quality or scope of the injury as I bled. And it came to me that I might as well, rather than playing along, watch the children play in traffic with their parents. And I came back to myself
Just a moment.
and thought, good
Find
Lord,
that and
am I really
stop it.
doing this again? Am I really going to chase down and terrorize every impulse that pushes against my heart? Why, when I know charm in the sway of
To
rage
find
way,
the,
we've sorted skin and found it wanting sort of way, and I step away from myself, and I think,
somewhere.
this is how to make time to think. Break yourself into pieces, scatter them, label them anything other than a name.
All right, I think that went on a little longer. Hopefully you can see me. That went on a little longer than I intended. Um, that work is entitled "The Soft Solace of a Slightly Descended Lost Life." Suck it. In parentheses, suck it. And the tone of it is sort of encapsulated in both the longer title and the shorter title. It's about it's about any number of things, I guess, but saying it's about any number of things is not quite the way to put it. Some of the natures of certain things is in a certain frame of mind, and one of the things it's about is about getting tired at a point. And a colleague of mine at one point told me that there's a line in an August Wilson play uh, where a character says the one thing a black man can never do is get tired in public and let people see you do that. And so I thought that's sort of one of the things that sort of bubbled up for me in that work. And I show you that one because we did that work, the dancers and I did that work during COVID. So I guess we, 6 or 7 months ago, put it together. And it's a different working process for us because we did the film before we did the live version. And so the live version of that is going to premiere at the Presidio Theater in about a month and a half. And it'll be both very similar and significantly different than what's there. So I'll start with that, just sort of showing you that. And that's sort of a very sort of internal conversation that you might have with yourself, the tone of that. The next piece I'm going to show you is just a little piece I'm going to show you about 2 minutes. This next one I think is just about 2 minutes, and that'll be the whole first section. And this is more of a direct response, again, to a state of being, our way of sort of being in the world. And the title of the work is A Few Thoughts on Financial Literacy. But it's really about shifting the framework of how, and again, I see words like it's about this, and I don't really mean it's about that, but it's of the nature of shifting the framework of how it is that someone might respond to you. I was reading, going back through Brenda Dixon Gottschalk, and she's talking about how it is that we get trapped in understanding the visual, how it is we get trapped in understanding what it is that someone is carrying just with their body. And this, in a way, is about that, but it's also about the actions that we take. So I'm going to share this. This is called A Few Words on Financial Literacy. And what I'm doing is I'm also trying to move from sort of the very sort of internal to something that's pretty much external. So I'm showing you 3 sort of examples of what I do. So I'm going to show you the first section of this and then stop it. You'll see that some of the elements are the same. And we can talk about why that is if you want to when we're done. So here we go. Get ready to share the video. If I can find a way to do that. And this time I will try to, here we go. This time I will try to turn the video off before I come back. Can you see my screen? I'm hoping that you can. Okay, here we go.
Brother, don't let dark catch you here. Devil out tonight. Could be anywhere. Down at the station, where the weary get their rest. When this train get moving, you got to give your best. Ask the conductor, tell me what's the time. Devil out in broad daylight, better get on down the line. Station master tell you, hear that whistle blow, lay you down a pallet on the station floor. On the station floor, station floor. Gone underground. That's why I'm gone underground. Man once had a family, wife and children too. Devil come and bust it up. Now we sing these blues. People the same. No matter where you go, they're giving to the rich, stealing from the poor. That's why I'm gone underground. Gone underground. Gone underground. Gone underground. Gone underground. Okay, just a moment. Let me go back. Now I'm going to have to stop this and make sure it doesn't. This is not very smooth of me to do it like this, but I have to sort of make sure that it doesn't sort of go anywhere. That work is a slightly newer work than the other that I showed you, and it's sort of more directly aimed at sort of where. Oh, there we go. Pardon me. Let's get back to it. Now, where is it? Oh my goodness. Sorry, this is not my forte here. Got it. Okay. All right. Now I'm back. I should say that the artists that you're seeing are members of RMK. That was Samuel. The editor on that is Cora, who's another artist and wonderful person. I actually work with, when I'm working with folks, I have to work with people that I can trust. So, and that's going to sound, it may sound weird, but in the dance field where you're using your body, or if you're writing and you're sharing something that may be personal, it's really important. Or if you're turning something over to someone, like for instance, turning over the material to an editor, you have to trust that they're going to respond, respect, try to deal with what you have there as honestly as possible. They don't have to agree with where you're sort of going with something as you're working with together with them, but there are things that you will need um, from them. So that work again, there's the text is overlaid. Obviously, there's a lot going on in terms of the. Oh, and I should say that the music, the pre-recorded music, is Corey Harris, who's a really wonderful blues roots practitioner. Uh, and I lost my place there, but so that's sort of more moving into the realm of sort of being in front of you, speaking a language that we might understand. It's really about, and again, I hate that word, it's really about, but it's the nature of how you apprehend, and I mean that word in all the ways that you might take it, how you apprehend behaviors or the manner in which someone might present themselves to you or might be presented to you just by the nature of who they are. And so that was, when I wrote that one up to try to get funds for it, because that's what we do. We try to put the idea down as clearly as we can. It was sort of I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it's sort of in that nature. Okay. The last thing I'll show you is that because I am really very much interested in storytelling, somewhat in narrative, but I'm interested in things that larger themes. I'll show you a very short micro
story that I did quite some time ago, and because of COVID, and we're sort of looking back through the work, trying to figure out what's next. What do we do? What can I use? What can I make use of? This is a little teeny short thing that I wrote, and we refashioned it for this moment. So I'm going to jump to that. It'll be the last thing that I show you, and then I'm going to ask you if you have any questions. So just need a moment to find that. Where is it? I'm going through. Here we go. So I'm going to share one last time here. I'm not nearly as polished as Katie was, but hopefully you'll forgive me. And go from here. Here we go. I think you can see it. And I'm going to blow it up now. And going. There was once a child who had nothing, wanted everything, and so sat for a cry, so sad and loud that an idea came along and said, "Something wrong?" The child replied, "Yes." The idea said, "Well, what's the problem?" And the child said, "I want everything, and I ain't got nothing." "Well, that's clear," the idea said, and added, "But is that it? Is that all? Okay, I got it. Look, I've got a lot of friends who, when all together, add up to something, and every one of them can give you something you want. But," said the child, "I have nothing, and I could never pay for everything." The idea's usual reply to this was, "Just give me what you're willing to have taken." But today, for some reason, the idea took a different tact. The idea asked, "Well, if you can't pay now, are you at least ready to start? We can settle up later." "Start what?" said the child. "Exactly," said the idea. And so the journey began. So that one is just a little bit more straightforward storytelling. It's going to probably expand to something else. I don't know if it's going to actually expand to a bigger dance, but I think it's going to expand to a little more writing. Uh, I think I showed you that one last because it's that struggle that you have in your head, or that back and forth you have in your head with ideas. I think with all three of those, it's that's very important to me. That it's not just something that comes up and you conquer it. Although at some point you're going to have to pin it to something, right? You're going to have to pin the idea to your lapel or to the floor, or maybe it's a balloon and you fly it against the sky or something like that. But so you have to have some kind of control over it. But there is a point when you're working and the ideas are just kind of pushing you around, and before you can do anything else, you just have to have a conversation with them. So I think that's a little what I was showing the night, that the conversation that I sometimes have with these things, whether they're very internal, they're the kind of thing I might say to someone, or something that might be a little more presentational. So I think I'm a little short on time, short on what I was supposed to do, but I think that's about what I had to share with you tonight. And so thanks for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Katie. Woo! If people can go into gallery view now, and we can start to open the floor for discussion. Thank you both for such incredible presentations here. I'm going to call out on one of our first, we have a question coming from, who's our first question here? Dun, dun, dun. I think it was from Zach to Katie. Do you want to ask it, Zach?
Oh, yeah. Hi. Thank you both so very much. Katie, you used the word making things happen, or the phrase making things happen, and you used it twice. Um, And I'm wondering what you mean by things, and also if you meant the same thing by thing or things in both of those two readings that you gave us. If that question is too like bizarre and you don't feel like you want to answer it, you can say, "That's up to you. What I mean by things. That's fine. I don't need an answer. I'm just curious what your answer is."
Yeah, thanks for asking me that. It's funny because I think for me the emphasis on saying that was more on with people. Um, I think what I realized through this process of like collaborating over the internet and then playing live, you know, how messed up, Robert, you just talked about this too, how messed up this process is. Like it's an opposite process, and recording things and then presenting them later in some live form. Um, so it's been really bizarre for things to turn around like that. And I mean, things in this sense, it can certainly be art, making art, but it could be like somebody making me dinner. I think it's about like working with people. For me, I really realized if I put an umbrella over like all of my work, it's not really about playing the clarinet, but it's like about collaborating with people and playing their music, or um, you know, making concerts happen, like putting people together. I think I need like hearts beating in a room. Um, it's really important to me, or like doesn't exist really.
Thank you. Making things happen with people.
Alex, you're muted.
Sorry. Classic. Kurt, did you want to ask your question, your follow-up question?
Yeah, actually, oh God, I've been unmuted already. Or did you do that? I just like another question came to me that feels more important, Robert. Like that moment when the story ended and you said exactly. And I don't know about you, but I'm really touched.
Uh-oh, because we lost you.
You did? I mean, I lost me too. I was really touched at that moment unexpectedly. And I felt like, you know, story is one thing, and maybe stories can always touch, but there's like a poetic craft there in knowing how I could almost feel that in 3 dimensions, that exactly. It's just like the whole thing splashed, you know? And I kind of want to know what you mean by, I'm sorry, I'm losing it. It's completely irrational, but here I am.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm not sure that I heard your question. You want to know what
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, I'm just curious because this is my only exposure to your work, and like, how often do you feel this thing when what you call story, you know, like it has something in it that's like an incisive moment of transforming the meaning of the whole thing, right? And I just wonder if that's like something you're used to doing. I just find it really potent.
I think, thank you. First of all, thanks for saying that, and I appreciate your reaction. I really do. And as Kitty was saying, I think I really miss that thing where you're alive in front of other people, so we can actually have a real engagement and dialogue. I don't know how, if I can say how often. I think part of it is that thing of trying to put something down that is as close to some kind of truth or something as some kind of something mattering as possible, right? And that's maybe a moment for me that I'm trying to figure out that this is what this thing is. It's time to begin this thing. So that's all I can do is just begin. Or if I write something and I've done this, I've written something and it's had someone else in it, and I know that they'll recognize that they're in it, and I've taken it to them and I've said, is it okay if I do this? And then we have the kind of reaction you just had, and they say no. And they say no, don't do that. I can't have you do that. Even if others won't know. And then we say, okay, all right, well, that's not going to happen then. And that sits wherever it sits. but it's got to. I mean, if it's going to connect with some folks, then it's going to connect, and I think that's hopefully that's a beautiful thing. So that's what I'd say to that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mm.
Thank you.
I just want to say it was really amazing to see the poetry in both of your works and the inner dialogues that came through. And I don't know, for me, I was very much just like nodding and like really much, I felt this deeper, almost just like spiritual connection to the work because of all the doubts that seep into the mind. It's so very much a part of the process as a creative. And I was thinking a lot about how you guys, and Katie, you do a lot of duets. It seems, right? You do a lot of partnering, and for Robert, you do maybe more like ensembles, at least in the works that we saw tonight. Um, what are these like initial questions you ask from those people, or what are the kind of like, how do you enter the room, so to speak, with these collaborators?
Okay, you want to take that? You want to start? Okay, all right.
I want to say what you said, which was so wonderful. You said that you needed trust. You needed to work with people that there was like a mutual trust.
Yeah.
It's so important.
I think that's really true. And last week I was in Denver working with a group of people that I didn't know, but who had been working together for a while, and they knew each other. And we started the process off by, before we did any steps, I had them write down 3 things about someone in the room. Um, 3 things that they respected, loved, about someone in the room, and they hadn't told them and didn't know. So we put all that stuff on pieces of paper, and we didn't use that in any technical way to make anything, but every once in a while they would be able to go over and just grab something and see all of the ideas about the people in the room, and that could begin to feed how it was that they were going to be with each other in the room. You don't always have time to sort of do certain kinds of things, but yeah, I think um, you want to make the room as fertile as possible, and it's a different process every time you go in the room with different folks. So.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mhm.
It's
Go for
Hannah. I would just want to explore the topic, the concept of trust, since it's such an important thing for you. Can you talk about the background arriving at it, and what type of experiences did you have with mistrust?
Oh, I think that's easy. Like if you don't trust somebody, you just know it. It's like, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this in this way. And you could, if you're in a situation where you feel like someone's a mercenary, if you're working for them, and I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but you be mercenary in different ways, right? The question is, do you want to be, if we're working together, you have different relationships, but if we're working with people and you're in the room with, and Katie, you can speak to this as well, I guess, but you're in the room, I don't want to be in the room with someone that doesn't want to be in the room for uh I'm going to say the right reasons, but and they don't have to be my reasons, right? They don't have to be my reasons or other people. You want to be in the room because there's something that you're real that you're after or that you want, or uh you know it can be any number of things. It doesn't have to be anything attached to my life, but whatever your right reason is. And if for whatever reason I don't trust you, then it gets really tough for me. I mean, we might be able to get through that. We'll get through that uh, process because we've all been doing this a long time, and I have to put one foot in front of the other in order to get this thing done. And then people have paid, $10 to come see it, and so we have to sort of get through it. But that'll probably be it.
So you're talking about quality of work, commitment to it, and
No, I'm talking about our relationship. when I say that, I don't, you don't, your commitment to the work does, you don't have to have the same commitment that I have to the work in the same way that I have my commitment to work, but there's got to be something in there where you say, this means, really means something to me, and we can agree on that. So being in any situation where someone doesn't value something that you love, and no, we cannot hang out. We cannot hang out if we can't do it. I mean, I think that's all that is.
Okay,
Yeah, I think I want to say a little bit to that question too, because this art that we're working in, I think both of us, like dance is even more impoverished than music. And I'm on like this limb of experimental music that, you know, like we're all there mostly because we want to be there. And at some point, you're willing to just give time to share. I think these are where I find my people. Like, oh, okay, how, and not necessarily even hours, but time to have an open mind and work and play the piece again. You know, music that might be simple in some professional environment, but like, okay, this music that we're making is quiet and still and takes some time to place in the right spots, and like that's just gonna have a different mindset. So it's like people that are willing to spend time this way. Some for some reason I am. It's like my favorite place to be. So
I love that. I love how you put those things into words, those feelings, things. Oh, there we go. We're back to that word. Wei, um, you have a couple questions.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One for Katie, one for Robert. Katie, on desert, when I hear you play your music, there's a really strong impact that I felt like I can't get it from anywhere else. Like it in the different environment, just don't have the impact. But today, listen to your music again. I kind of it keep on bringing me back to that landscape, that open landscape. I'm really super curious that um, what draws you to desert, and what kind of impact to your music you get from being around the desert?
cool. Thanks for asking me that. I mean, it's not just the desert. Like I really, am in love with land artwork, and I think it's back to this time thing. Like when I was out at Nancy Holt's Sun Tunnels, just realizing that like it's a piece of artwork that exists in time and it changes over time, and you have to like you don't have to, but it's nicer if you sit with it for a lot of time and watch the slow change happen. And like these are the things that I love in the kind of music that I'm in, really sitting with it. And so I don't know. I mean, it's part of my practice doing some things at Land Artwork, and the spiral jetty is here too. Like I walked the whole spiral jetty and played a note every 15 seconds. It took me like an hour and a half, that kind of thing. I feel a synergy also with these artists that like sort of came out west and did stuff and then took it back. So I'm sort of feeling this like in situ kind of environment where I go and I do something for nobody out here, and then I take it and present it in New York or wherever, anywhere, could be for my family, but for people like these two happenings. Like, does it matter that I went and played my clarinet for nobody in the desert? It mattered to me, and it changed how I experienced it when I presented that work elsewhere.
I really hear a sense of permanence in the song you created. It's just like when you look out in the landscape, it's like you can just stay there, nothing happens, but it's like forever, just there. It's very beautiful. Robert, I have a question for you. So I earlier I told you about the experience of going to your class, and what I'd like to share with everybody is like okay, Robert's class, you go there, and like when the class finish, the whole mirror is fogged with the sweat, right? And not just work your body, but it really works your mind. That each time after his class, I really want to put an egg on my head, see if I can cook the egg. Well, looking at the work you created. So first, Robert, I have to say that whenever I see you move, I feel a sense of enlightenment. There's a clarity and meaning that reveals to me that I felt like cannot describe by word, but just by absorbing it. It's such a rich experience by watching a movement. And but I have to say that when I like when I have the how shall I say it, the text and the movement together, it make it difficult for me to get to it. And also my brain is working like super hard, but I felt like constantly struggle with my language part of brain and my perceptive part of brain. I really want to hear your comment or your thought behind the choice between like by you were using the word in the way that, especially like the last video you see, I found myself trying to catch every word in the poetry and trying to take in the movement. I found it to be very challenging.
Mhm. I think the first thing I would say would be to relax. Uh, 'Cause it's, because it's there, and ideally, what'll happen is you'll come back and you'll see it again. You go to the museum ever many times to just see. Dance is a visual art as well, and so is writing is also visual. I mean, all these things sort of they're all related. Yeah. So you can choose, uh, and particularly in this moment, um, when there's so many things that you can go back to. I think it's sort of a great moment for an artist like me, where I've been told my entire career there's just a lot going on. There's too much going on. So maybe it's a little different than Katie, than maybe what you maybe hear sometimes. But like, people just all the time, it's too much movement. It's too many words. And then separate. But why would I do that, right? Because it's not like you don't go through life with all these things coming at you anyway, and you can do them. So come back. In my mind, I think come back, see it again, look at it again on the video. We binge whatever we binge, or we listen to an album. I remember being a kid and listening to an album many times, and reading the maybe that's my problem, reading the liner notes. If anybody remembers liner notes, right? You read the liner notes, you're listening to the music, and then you start daydreaming as you're reading the liner notes, imagining whatever it is that you're going through. We don't have to take things and I know that there's science around not being able to dual process or double tap. I know there's science around this stuff. I don't believe it. Not, I mean, not practically, and not when if you could, and if I did believe it, I would say come back and watch it again. So I'm not worried about it being too much. I've heard that a lot. Ideally, what happens is you come back again, and then if you keep coming back, maybe I can pay my dancers a little more. That kind of thing. So I'm not. That's. I understand what you're saying, because I've heard that before, and I do get it. I do. I do.
Thank you. I have to really to say that the culture has changed our expectation. I mean, in the past, we go see things over and over again, and today with all the movies and the fast food, we expect to just like come and pass by, especially with social media. So I really appreciate you bring that up.
Well, I have to add something because I do have that struggle too, but then I really wanted to hear the word to read the words. And so when I chose to just focus on the words and not look at the dancing, then the dancing to me became like the movement on the background, and the movement became like the soul of the words to me. Like I didn't necessarily had to look at the dancing, but I could feel the energy of the dancing and how it was almost like it was the soul of the words that was moving there. And so when I decided to shift it and I had that experience, then I was like, hmm, yeah, I like that. It makes sense.
Good, good.
We have a few more minutes. We have Ramla put a question in the chat. Would you like to answer or ask yourself?
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted just to add, well, thank you both so much to both of the artists, but I've seen, I was fortunate to see a screening of A Soft Solace a few months ago, and I'm really excited to see it in person coming up. And so having seen some of Robert's work multiple times also online, I feel like it asks as a viewer for me to kind of dance with it and be actively involved in like where the attention is and what you receive. It's almost like you get a different version of it every time because of where you place yourself. And I find that very rich. But my question was just about what role surprise plays in the creative process for either of you, and if it's something that you look for and engage with, or how it might sort of arise from the idea form to the final version. Thank you.
Okay, you know what? Okay, all right. I think I work with human beings all the time, and so they are constantly surprising, and they are constantly challenge you and sort of move you into different places. When you challenge yourself and you actually do something that you didn't think you could do, or you're surprised you did do, I think it's very important. It doesn't always wind up being getting painted into the spot that you've been working on, but it sort of gives you another notion about where you might go. I think it's very important. Um, I tell the dancers sometimes if they've been working with me for a while, please don't do what you think I want you to do. Please do what I'm asking you to do, because I know what I'm tired of. I like to try to figure out how to get to somewhere else, and then and often they're the ones that will go somewhere. I get most if I tell them to do something and they do just that thing, then I get a little bored with it. I mean, I sometimes I'll give something to the person who I know is contrary, because I know I'm not gonna, and they'll do something he's done there, and he or she or whatever, they'll go off and do something else, and I won't necessarily know what it is, but I do know that their behavior will add to the richness of whatever it is we're trying to do. So even with surprise, you can kind of build it in a little bit. You just don't know what the surprise will be. That's what I'd say.
I'll talk a little bit about that too, because I had one of the strangest working processes was in one of the pieces that I shared. I've never had a working process like that. The bass clarinet duet with my friend Lucio Capici, the Whales. We met on the internet every week for like a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and made this like hour and a half long duo. But it was like we truly added some notes or like some phrases maybe every week. It was so slow, and so you're asking about like, I mean, the process was so wonderful. Like we met, we played what we'd made, we tried to remember what we'd made. And then it was over like one day. Like both of us were kind of like, wait, are we done? And really sad about it. Like, wait, does this mean we shouldn't meet on Zoom every week anymore with our bass clarinets? But it was so clear that we were done with the piece. And I don't even think like I ever even imagined there being an ending to that piece. And so now it like exists on its own. It has a recording that we made, and I went to Berlin, we played it live, like, it's had this whole other lifetime, and it truly wasn't something that I ever thought would even really exist. So it's a nice surprise, but I kind of miss it, honestly.
I have a quick question about, you mentioned Berlin, and I know that it's a city full of artist experimentation and so forth. So how did you feel, and how was the reception to your work? Did you feel like, yeah, I have arrived?
You know, there's actually like a really pretty open-minded scene for like really quiet music there and like alternate intonation. I had no idea um, people are seeking that music out. So yeah, I didn't, you know, I'm always playing for nobody, even in like big cities, and people wanted to come listen. And I think it was also like right when restrictions had lifted. It was in September of 2021, and people were really excited to just be in the room and hear live music. So yeah, it felt great.
So just so you know, we're coming to an end here, but there's a few more questions. I'm gonna put links to the chat in the chat with Kinetic Arts information of where the recording will be of this talk, and also of upcoming events. So stay tuned. I think Dai, you had put your last question, or was that a notification?
No, I just put it in the chat. One more last question because it's time to finish, but I wanted to give an opportunity for one last question if someone is like burning there. Let's go, Alex, because Alex hasn't asked the question yet.
Yeah, in relationship to the question that Katie, you just answered, but this actually applies to both of you. In the process of the rehearsal, but in particular over a long time, I'm curious how you see the audience that I assume you're building an audience in the rehearsal or just the practice and the creativity of it. I'm just curious how you see that change over time.
I have no idea. And just to be practical, I have no idea who my audience is after COVID. Particularly in San Francisco, people are moving, and I have no idea of who they are. I know, we're trying to, and that's more or less. It's almost like a practical question if you're talking about it in that way. If you're saying who do I want the audience, if you're asking who I want the audience to be, I, I, I think I'm one of those people. I want everybody to see it. You just should just see it. But I don't know. I don't have the slightest idea who's out there anymore. I mean, I don't think I've met any of you. I mean, I don't have met any of you before except our hosts here. So I'm glad to meet you.
Yeah, not so much who do you want, but at least in my creative process, I'm always sort of picturing that at any moment of time an audience, and they change as the stories develop and move around. That's more what I thought. So really, during the creative process, it's not about who you want.
Yeah, no, I think sorry. I think I'm more just trying to get the thing out and trying if I feel like I'm representing something or some group or someone, then I try to be genuine with that. But if I start worrying too much about the audience, then that's another third, that's a sixth or seventh eye, and it's just too much going on inside my head. I mean, I I have to consider certain things, but it can't have all those people in my head. It's crowded enough already, right? That's what they say in Ghostbusters.
Yeah. True. All right. Well, that was the end of the Q&A. Thank you so much for everyone asking your questions. This was amazing, amazing talk. Stay tuned. We'll pass along some resources your way. And with the recording, please feel free to share with others who were not able to show up today for whatever reason. But till then, we can't wait to see your works coming up. Your show coming up in person. So we'll put that in an email, right? And Katie as well, and any of the links you had. So, all right.
Thank you so much. This was great. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye-bye. Thanks,
Thank
Katie.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good.
Thank you,
Bye.
Katie. Thank you, Robert.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.